Live and online, it's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve, alive and in living color on this Wednesday evening, wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Hanging out on this Wednesday evening, first show of December, one of the final shows of 2023. Can you believe we have been doing this show now for almost 4 years in its revival state?
It's just become a thing, a way of life for us. It seems it's been a near constant all that time, and it doesn't feel like it. Like it doesn't feel like, and that's a good thing. That's a positive. It doesn't feel like a burden. It really doesn't. Only on the most extreme of days where it's like I might as well just say I can't go tonight. But for the most part, it's like no, it's been a constant. And not a burden, and very much it's gotten me to go to the movies because I need something to hold my feet to the fire. You know how it's like never give an artist an open and no deadline. Always give an artist a deadline, I should say, because they'll just constantly forever keep working on something or whatever. Actually, I don't know if that actually does apply. What I'm trying to say is that I need something to hold my feet to the fire. And actually watch a freaking movie because I do consider them important to me.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, I will say the show was maybe, and I think this is just objectively speaking, the show was slightly easier to do when during the pandemic, when we didn't have anything else aside from work and other daily obligations, and even work and all, like, what I do for a living is way different than what you and Joe do for a living. You two do very similar things. But the difference is, though, is that even your work responsibilities weren't traditional like they are now. But even so, then, it's funny just how this show has kind of survived like the world opening back up again, because we really spawned this. It was based on your 24-hour Facebook Live for your birthday, and we had the reunion.
Was that really it?
Your wife, Chelsea, said, you guys sound so good right now and so comfortable, like you haven't missed a beat. You guys should do this again.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
That's what it was. I remember
funny.
that distinctly.
That is funny.
And then we did, and then it was Onward was the first show, the Pixar movie. And then like I said, it survived the world opening back up, me moving again further west, after I think it was a 2, maybe 3 week hiatus or so, something like that. But, it survived multiple vacations. Obviously, Joe's taken his share of sabbaticals and stuff with school and everything, but we've still made this work. And I'm just saying it means a lot to me. This isn't like a reunion show or anything, or this isn't the 4-year official show, but just got me thinking again, for the intro. I never know where I'm going to go until I start.
Yeah. Same.
It's
been a good. When was our official first show? Was it April?
April 21st, I think it was.
Okay, gotcha.
April 21st or April 28th. I'd have to go back and look at the schedule.
End of April. That's Steve. That's the month of Steve.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. But we got a loaded show today. We got so much to talk about today. The Holdovers, a movie that I'm really glad you got to see. A movie that I have a lot of faith in, despite the studio not having a ton of faith in, seeing that it's already on premium video on demand, the damn thing, and it just came out. And we're also going to touch on, and I thought about it, but it's honestly been such a big part of where my head has been this week, that I thought, and it's such a cultural moment. It's such a cultural moment to end the year. And I think it's just a wickedly fun story to talk about. We don't usually talk games. You two play far more games than I do, and I have barely played video games over the last few years.
You have played the important ones, such as,
yes, like Grand Theft Auto.
There you go.
And I'm a diehard Grand Theft Auto fan, and I'll share more about that when we dive into our trailer reaction to GTA 6, which is so, it was so surreal. It was, it's funny. I've watched that trailer probably now 7 or 8 times.
Yeah, same.
And because the first time I'm watching it, it felt just so surreal. I almost felt like I didn't pay any attention to it, because, and then I went back and watched it again. My first blush at the trailer was God, it's gorgeous. I love this Tom Petty song. Holy shit, there's a gator. Like, you know, and there was so much. There's so much to process in just that very fleeting minute and a half that we will get to. And it's going to be a long, long wait. And we're not waiting any longer, however, for a man I wasn't sure if he was going to make the show tonight, but he has mid intro. Joe Viso, how are you, brother?
Hello.
Hey,
How you
look at
guys
that by the
doing?
fire.
Yeah, by the fire, just resting, everything.
What's
Went with the
going
more
on, man?
winter theme. Nothing much. Sorry that I'm late. We did meet tonight, me and my group, but it was just one person. So it went
So
by
that's a
like that.
date. No, I'm kidding.
Really?
So, it was just one yeah, it was just one person showing up. For those of you who have been wondering where the hell I've been the past month, since it's been a month since I've been on Sleepless. Um the class I'm currently in involves me being a group leader for like the whole class, and nobody else was stepping up to the plate to do it, so I volunteered even though I really didn't want to. And unfortunately, the only time most of these people could meet was on Wednesdays during this show. And then eventually we switched to the Tuesdays. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can come back. Before, I used to meet up with them like at 5:30 and then go into Sleepless and then go shower. Like that was my Wednesdays. But then we moved it to Tuesday and I was like, oh, awesome. But then the class revealed that we have to start interviewing people from these organizations of like department heads that are
Mm.
pledging their time to the class. And of course, the two organizations I have, the Village of Elburn and the Village of Coal City, these guys can only meet on Wednesdays from 5:30 to 6 and 6:30 to 7. And I was like, well, I guess I'm not Sleepless anymore. But we're near the end of the class. Next week's the last week, so there's not as much to like really interview them about. We mostly have all the answers we need for this like final 15-page paper, and a PowerPoint presentation that has to be 15 to 20 minutes long. So I was like, I actually think I might be able to join on tonight's show. Probably not next week because then that's when everything's due for this class, but I was like, I at least want to make it for this one because of the two topics here at hand, GTA 6 and the holdovers.
Yes, indeed. I was just talking about just initial blush of the GTA 6 trailer. And again, we don't really talk video games on this show. If we do, it's very it's very minimized, or it's just very minute
Yeah.
part of the show. But I was telling Dom, though, I said I thought about it, and I'm like, it just feels like such a cultural touchstone to end the year and a cultural moment. As it is, it's going to be a recurring talking point now until the game is released, and it's still a long way off from a release.
Yeah.
And I was telling Dom, I said I've probably watched the trailer 7 or 8 times now, and I think the first time watching it, though, I was just so starstruck by the fact that it was finally here. I didn't pay too close attention to it.
Yeah.
And then, like, I feel like I noticed something additional. It was a lot like the GTA 5 trailer, which I remember dropping. Had the song Skeletons by Stevie Wonder in it. And I watched that trailer probably 6 or 7 times when it dropped in the ensuing week. It felt like just such another moment in time. And we'll get into more of that towards the end of the show to touch on that, just our initial reactions. So it's great to see you, man. I was gonna say this is a full show appearance too. This isn't just an extended cameo.
No, no, this is not like that one week where I just popped in for like the last 5 minutes. I'm here till we end the show.
Excellent. I love it, man. We'll get started here because we do have a lot to talk about. We do have to start, though, with Norman Lear. I do want to start with this here because, this is a guy who's 101 years old, so his death isn't so much shocking, but it's sad no less. Norman Lear is a name that's synonymous with sitcom television, has been for decades, and for good reason, too. In very basic sense, Norman Lear was the creator and producer of a litany of 70s sitcoms. He basically is, in definition, the founding father of the modern sitcom when it came to shows like All in the Family, The Jeffersons, Sanford and Son, Good Times, Maude, Mary Hartman. There's a ton of shows that he worked on, even going as far as to like One Day at a Time and everything. And all of those shows are funny. They still hold up today. I've watched most of the ones I've named. I'm a big All in the Family fan, big Jeffersons fan. Never did watch Maude though. Never did watch Maude. I probably need to change that. Sanford and Son was great though too. But the things that I think make his shows endearing and lasting is the fact that they were very they were like political without being overtly political. And the way that they would attack sort of either racial biases, socioeconomic issues, and things, and they would embed those stories so ingeniously through humor. It was actually funny. A couple months ago, I was watching All in the Family again on MeTV, and there's a great episode. There's some of the most famous episodes in All in the Family's history is when Sammy Davis Jr., the singer, meets Archie Bunker, who's a big fan. Archie Bunker's a big fan of Sammy Davis Jr.
It's just the funniest thing in and of itself.
Yes, it is, because Archie Bunker is known as this cantankerous, this like pretty racist character. And there's an amazing bit of Sammy Davis Jr. in the Bunker household talking to Archie. And Archie saying things like, why can't more of you people be like you? And things like that. And there's an amazing bit in that. It's one of the funniest clips on that show, And there's a million funny clips from All in the Family. But it is the scene when Archie tells Sammy Davis Jr., "You're a credit to your race," and Sammy Davis Jr. tells Archie, I'm sure you are too. and it shows you how boundary pushing Lear was at the time. The other thing I'll say briefly before I pass it off to you, Dom, and then you, Joe, just to comment on Norman Lear's passing, is that Norman Lear was very political too, just in his private life and in his life beyond sitcoms. One of the things I didn't know until today, and this is awesome. Like, I mean, he founded the advocacy organization People for the American Way. But one of the other cooler things that he's done, and I never knew this until today, that in 2001, he purchased a John Dunlap broadside, one of the first copies of the United States Declaration of Independence, for $8.1 million. He purchased an original broadside copy of it. Dunlap printed only about 200 copies of the Declaration of Independence, and 25 survive today. 4 of those are in private hands. And what he does was, Lear was not a document collector. What he did was he went on the Today Show and said, I want to tour this document around the United States so people could experience the birth certificate firsthand instead of reading the text on a screen or reading the text in a book. They can see the physical document. And he took it on a road trip, essentially, too. He went to museums. He went to presidential libraries. He went to the fucking Super Bowl with it. He went to the Olympics with it. And they also, him and Rob Reiner produced a film dramatic reading of the Declaration of Independence. And it's introduced by Morgan Freeman and Kathy Bates. And Mel Gibson, Michael Douglas, Renee Zellweger, Kevin Spacey, Edward Norton all read excerpts of the Declaration of Independence. And this went on for like 4 years that he did this. And it was something just like, I feel like we should have, as a country, talked about that more. Granted, we were young. We don't remember it really well. But I'm like, that feels like a really big thing by one of the biggest names in television at the time. I never knew he did that with the Declaration of Independence, let alone he purchased a Dunlap copy of it. So I just wanted to say that was really interesting. That was something I found it today, just kind of doing some research on him before the show. But, 101 years old. You can say a lot of things about Norman Lear. You can't say he didn't live a full life, number one. And half the MeTV lineup now and TV Land lineup is dominated by shows that he created or he had a hand in. So he's the godfather of sitcoms for a good reason. And I think a lot are still trying to be as good as his. What say you, Dom?
First of all, I just think it's just funny to look back on that kind of ubiquitous mainstream liberal mindedness in everything, that a little problematic, but also maybe a yearning for. But that's all beside the point. For Norman Lear specifically, I'm looking at his work, and it's like, yeah, that dude. That dude, they might as well just call MeTV. If they ever gave it a name, they just might call it Lear TV. But for real though, I think back on like the stories of certain writers that are so important and so so in the industry and so important there that they get their own movie or series later on in life. So for instance, Dalton Trumbo. We got the Bryan Cranston Trumbo there. Truman Capote. We get Capote. Are we gonna get a Lear at some point? Some Lear biopic starring, I don't know, who would be good for him. I keep thinking of like Gmod models as opposed to actual actors, but with Norman Lear, he just seems like one of the most important guys for that stretch of time, and for basically what our parents would have grown up with. Maybe your guys' parents, mine were in the Philippines, but for you guys, if your guys' families, and for everyone's families, or not everyone, but like a lot of people's families, they can trace themselves back to trace a lot of their families, TV time to this one dude, and we should consider ourselves lucky that he wasn't a sleazeball to our knowledge, and he very much put those values forward with things like All in the Family, Sanford and Son, and Jeffersons, which is just like, damn, what a rap sheet on this dude. I can't imagine. Joe.
Look, this guy literally invented my Nick at Night lineup.
There it is.
When I was like going to bed as a kid, and I would stay up to the wee hours in the morning on the weekends, Saturday, Friday, even Sunday sometimes, disobeying my parents. It was because I wanted to watch Nick at Night, and a lot of these sitcoms he was involved in. And then eventually I would, discover, wait a minute, they play before school. I can watch these before school. So I would go to bed at an appropriate time and then start watching them before school. The Jeffersons was always like one of my favorites. That one was always on at Nick at Night, along with a few episodes of All in the Family I would catch. Sanford and Son's another one. Those first two I said, though, I mean, especially the Jeffersons, that was like right there for me. I used to be addicted watching like the Jeffersons, Fresh Prince, a little bit of Full House, and then there was one other sitcom, Roseanne, but that's changed drastically now. It's sad to see such a legendary producer, writer, like kind of just pass on and everything. A person that basically made sitcom to what I would say what it is known as today, and just helped like kind of be the grandfather of it all and everything. But rest in peace. And Steve, you say you lived to 101.
Yep.
I mean, shit, not everybody makes it even past like 70 nowadays with how many celebrity deaths we've seen. So hey man, more props to his health and everything, for him getting on that long and everything. It's a sad passing, but he got to live a very, very full life.
But one other thing I want to mention too, and I was just talking to actually Catherine and her mother about this show. I brought it up because one of our favorite comfort shows is 2.5 Men, me and Catherine. And we're big 2.5 Men fans. But the reason I bring it up is because if you ever watch 2.5 Men, the maid in the show, and I think I brought this up when she died, Conchata Ferrell. One of Norman Lear's shows that he created, and it's actually a funny show. It's very hard to find online. But I always try to shout it out whenever I can because it's a fun show. It's called Hot L Baltimore. And it was one of his earliest sitcoms, Hot L Baltimore. Now, the reason it's called Hot L Baltimore is it takes place in a hotel in Baltimore, Maryland, and the E on the marquee of the hotel is burned out.
That's pretty funny.
So it's Hot L Baltimore. And it's a really good show because like the two main characters, it did not last very long. It lasted only a season, but two of the primary characters of the show are prostitutes, one of whom is Conchata Ferrell. And it was also one of the first American sitcoms to have an illegal immigrant as a main character, as well as one of the TV's first gay couples as a recurring character. Yeah. And this was in, I'll get the year right, this was in 1975.
Wow.
So I always want to throw that out there because I feel like nobody talks about Hot L Baltimore. And Conchata Ferrell was funny as hell on that show too. But anyway, rest in peace to Norman Lear. Definitely wanted to say something about that. Sad news today. But those shows will still keep playing and people will still keep watching them for good reason. We got to talk about Alexander Payne's The Holdovers. More pain from Payne. Alexander Payne is one of the best American directors working today. A lot of people forgot that. And I don't blame that, because his last movie, excellent background, Joe, his last movie, Downsizing, was one of his biggest financial disappointments, and also probably the biggest disappointment of his career in terms of quality of movie. Did you guys see Downsizing?
No, because I heard how much it's just not a good movie, and I kind of just skipped out on it. It came out in 2019 as well, right? Or 2018?
17.
Fuck, I mean, sorry, my bad.
17. The reason I always remember Downsizing, not only because I was desperately looking forward to that movie, Mom and I saw it on Christmas, but I have a fleece. I have a Downsizing fleece pullover that I got from Cinemark. So Downsizing, I'm still one of the few people that remember that fondly. Not a good movie, terrible bait and switch. I don't know if you remember that movie Matt Damon did called Promised Land, which was basically an hour and 50 weepy liberal tale about anti-fracking.
Yeah,
I don't know if you
Yes,
remember that movie.
I barely. I think I did watch it with my dad, but it was that's basically how I describe it too. Where it's like it's just so monotonously, it's got the heart of Aaron Sorkin in the worst way possible, and like no dialogue to back it up. So it's like, shit, what have we got here?
Co-wrote that thing. Krasinski co-wrote that thing
Yeah.
too. The reason I bring up Promised Land is because Downsizing, it was essentially Promised Land, except it's not about fracking, it's about immigration. And the whole movie lures you in, the trailer and everything, with this great premise about the overpopulation and them shrinking down human beings to like the size of miniatures and living in this world fit for miniatures. And then it's like, oh, this is an immigration story. This is an immigration parable, isn't it? And I remember by the end of that movie telling my mother, for about 10 minutes there, I forgot they were even small. Like, it was a terribly misguided movie. Mike D'Angelo, the film critic, had the best line. It's essentially a movie about a man who's sad that he has no shoes until he meets a woman who has no feet. That was essentially the onus behind Downsizing, and it kind of explains Alexander Payne's absence for several years now. This is his first movie in 6 years, and I don't think it's a coincidence that it's A, his best since Sideways, and B, it's his first movie since Sideways with Paul Giamatti, who was originally supposed to play Matt Damon's character in Downsizing. I'll throw that in there as well.
Oh, wow.
Paul Giamatti and Alexander Payne make beautiful music together. I'm aware that I like Sideways, I think, more than a lot of people do. But either way, I was super excited for The Holdovers, and this thing did not disappoint one iota. This thing feels like a lost 70s movie. It really does, in every way, shape, or form. The movie almost looks like it was shot through a fog of cigarette smoke, and I say that flatteringly. This thing is beautifully, beautifully made, extremely well written. The basic gist of it is it takes place at this prep school, Barton Academy in the New England area. It's a boarding school for men, or for young men, and high school age boys, essentially. And during the holidays, inevitably, there's some kids that can't go home for one reason or another. Well, Paul Giamatti is a professor. I think they're known as professors at this school. He's essentially stuck chaperoning the kids that get left behind. They're known as the holdovers. So initially, there's 5 kids. There's Paul Giamatti, and there's the lunch lady played by Divine Joy Randolph. Eventually, through circumstances that are long and winding, and I won't get into, it goes down to one kid, and that kid is not only excellent, he's played by Dominic Sessa, who's a brand new actor who actually didn't have a friggin' Wikipedia page until like a week or two ago. Dominic Sessa, though, plays Angus in the movie, and he's the lone left behind in the company of Paul, played by Giamatti, and Mary, played by Randolph. And the movie is kind of a hangout movie. It's kind of just about them spending this 2-week break stuck at Barton Academy. And Paul Giamatti is picture perfect as this irascible professor who loathes the responsibility bestowed upon him, loathes his place in life, and now is tasked with kind of being a de facto father figure to this kid whose mother does not want him home for the holidays. Loved every single little thing about this movie, but I've already written a long-ass review on it. I want to know what you think. We'll start with you, Dom.
Yeah, there's the saying, they don't make them like this anymore, but I really haven't felt a coming of age story hit so close to home and right between the eyes than this one. And the fact that it was able to there's a kind of an issue with certain coming of age stories where it gets in its own head, and it kind of plods along, and it gets too, not depressing necessarily. It can still be floaty and whatever, but it's kind of problematic where it's like, yeah, it's just so floaty, it doesn't feel grounded in much because it's kind of in its own head.
They also wrap up just out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. 100%. And there's a little bit of that in here, but for 133 minutes, that's probably with credits. Holdovers holds my attention. No, Holdovers really is it's just such a touching movie and a very authentic movie that I'm just so glad was made. And it probably hit close to home because there's a quick montage of Dominic Sessa, wandering his Catholic school, at midnight by himself, just aimlessly, eating ice cream, and just you're just so many at a crossroads of life, and I can very much relate to that. So, for the big three performances here, Giamatti, Sessa, and Joy Randolph, it's such a tight-knit, close movie. And there's another scene here where Sessa, meets a romantic interest, and you have such a close-up. It holds on a close-up of their faces, and you feel the tension there. It's like we don't really. I don't want to. I can't authoritatively say that we don't really get that anymore. But and I'm sure the 70s. I really, really, really tried to look past the 70s, aesthetic. For what I'm trying to say about the heart of this film, although I very much enjoy it, I'm trying to look past it at the same time to look deeper. And I just think it has that charm, not just with how it looks and feels, not just how it looks, but with how it makes you feel in it. And that is at the end of the day, that is what is going to be the staying power of this film, and I'm very much happy about it.
Joe, what say you? I know this hit home for you.
Let me say this. This December, I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch a couple films before we do our best of list. I need to go back and rewatch Oppenheimer, Barbie, and now The Holdovers, because I don't know which one I would place where on my best of list.
This is such an anti-Holdovers, anti-Barbie movie, just in the feels. Yeah.
It is shocking how good of a year it's been already with just some movies. I know we always have a few duds here and there, but in terms of just, other films that, that I just didn't see coming as being like, as good as they were, like Missing and, Oppenheimer and Barbie, bringing them again, like being as good as they were. The TMNT, I'm a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan, and I was surprised at how good that turned out to be. So to actually get something also from one of my favorite directors out there, Alexander Payne. I know, Steve, you said you're one of the few people that loves Sideways. I love that movie too. I love Nebraska as well. To get a movie from him that's this damn good, to where I would say this is probably his best movie he's made ever. This is probably my favorite Alexander Payne movie. And I know that's like, it's coming off of like after seeing it this year and everything, it's too soon to call. It's been a month since I've seen this movie. I went to go see this movie on Friday after Thanksgiving, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And it's mainly just to do with how well this movie was crafted in every aspect. The fact that it was made to look, it's shot on digital, but it was made to look like it was shot on film. Even having the old classic 70s like intros from the Focus Features and all these other studios that helped produce the movie.
And Miramax. And in fact, those studios didn't even exist in the 70s. That's what I think is the better part, is Focus and Miramax didn't exist in the 70s, but you wouldn't, if you didn't know that.
If you didn't know, you wouldn't know. Just the look of this movie, like Steve said, it's beautiful, but also the last thing I expected going into this movie is it turning out to be a new Christmas favorite for me. And I know Payne himself has said, I'm tired of people saying that about this movie. But I heard a good quote from Chris Stuckman in his review for this film. and is that, a film is created so many times throughout its production. When it's edited, it's a brand new movie. When it's, the sound goes in, it's a brand new movie. And then finally, the last time that it's changed or like made into a whole new movie is when an audience watches it and how they perceive it.
Yes.
And that is the perfect way to describe the holdovers, from how Payne might see it, directing it and writing it, versus how so many people are walking away from this movie. This movie is filled with humor and joy, but it's also filled with very sad and touching moments that just help make these characters feel all the more real. My letterbox review of this movie is just very short, but I just basically flat out say there was a good section of this movie. I forgot I was watching a movie and I felt like I was hanging out with people and just wanted to see what would happen next. Being trapped at this university sounds like a nightmare to me, especially being in school right now and meeting some of the professors I have. But the way it's done here and how fleshed out Paul Hunnam is fleshed out by Paul Giamatti's character, Divine Joy's Randolph's character, Mary Lamb, and then Dominic Sisa, Angus's character, all three of them have so many layers to them. Even Mary Lamb's character, who has this whole B plot involving her son, that whole plot line has, I think, probably the biggest like emotional payoff in the end. And I'm like, man, how are you going to top yourself? And then you get to the end of this film where Paul and Angus have their final like, conversation with one another before the film ends, and it gut punches there too. And it's just like, damn, to have all three of these characters go through this journey for the 2 weeks of this winter break and make it feel like, they just had a year with one another, like the relationship they developed and everything is truly extraordinary. To fit that all in 2 hours and 13 minutes is amazing. Because fuck, I mean, we sat through 3 hours of Martin Scorsese's movie, and I feel like I didn't get much out of that.
It used to be more commonplace. It used to be more commonplace for people to be able to accomplish those things in those 2 hours, but it feels like it's harder and harder to do. Either yes, the movie's too long, and they still don't accomplish it, or they just never bother in the first place. They never try. There's a lot of cynicism in our post Avengers, post Iron Man world, which is a flavor in and of itself that you can't discount. But it's also it's just permeated everything, and everyone's chasing that, and everyone wants that.
Yeah.
But it's so miserable, and there is a lot of misery in this movie. The scene from where Divine Joy Randolph is just breaking down at a Christmas party. That's fucking real. That's so.
It is.
God damn it.
And that was the scene I was about to bring up, and I'm glad you even bringing up this too, because it feels like, and I know we're butting up against time. I'll be real quick about this, but it feels like when I look back at the Killers of the Flower Moon, I do love the performances in that movie, but they do feel like, okay, this is their moment to show the acting showcase they have. And that's great. And I love that. But I really love it when a movie can just make a scene feel real and a person's reaction feel real, and not like that's an actor doing that. No, it's like, no, that is, I'm watching Mary cry at this party and I feel so sorry for her.
Yeah.
And it's not theatrical in the
way that it goes on too long or it's overblown. It's just real, and then it moves on and it moves forward.
Like life.
You like life. We'll be right back here after a few short minutes. Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. Got to take this Zoom sponsored intermission. Be back in a couple of minutes right here on YouTube. We are back after our Zoom-sponsored intermission. It is Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. Come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening in the midst of talking about one of the best films of the year, in my opinion. But I assume that opinion is shared by my two gents over here. It is The Holdovers, Alexander Payne's new movie. We were talking, kind of just giving general thoughts on this. There's a lot of different ways you could take this. I will say that Paul Giamatti is an actor that I think he's easy to kind of forget or overlook.
He's always been the side guy for the side guy for most of his career from the beginning, but then it's like these past couple decades he's been the main character in a lot of stuff and we don't realize it.
He has. He absolutely has. And I think the reason that Paul Giamatti might get overlooked some points. I mean, this guy has range, man. He's been in 12 Years a Slave. He's been in Fred Claus. He was John Adams. You know, like he has so much range as an actor. He's done horror movies. He's done animated movies. He was really good. One of my favorite Paul Giamatti performances is him as Jerry Heller in Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah.
And he's been in a bunch of movies, and I think the thing that I love about Paul Giamatti the most is that we need more actors that look like your neighbor, and that's who he is reminiscent of. He doesn't look like an actor. He doesn't look like a movie star. He's very much got this commonality about him that makes him like almost approachable, even when he is like just cynical and miserable in this movie. He's also like, he's not that far away from being very likable, even when he does some really shitty things in this movie. He's not far away, and his character is sympathetic, even when he's not. And he's blisteringly funny here, Giamatti. He's got some hilarious lines, and it's constant. Some of the best moments in this movie, the funniest moments, are the insults he hurls at these kids. Like he's accurate in a lot of ways. That's the best part. I mean, I won't give the context, but one of my favorite lines.
This is like a more whimsical J.K. Simmons. Please go ahead.
He really is. That's actually a really perceptive way to put it. One of my favorite lines, and I will not provide the context, but I love how he says, "What happened, Icarus? You fly too close to the sun?" Like, he's got some really barn-burningly funny lines in this thing. The other scene I love is the liquor store scene.
Oh, that's a great scene.
It's the liquor store scene. Here you go, killer.
I love just how much this dude drinks throughout the movie. Like, it just cracks me up every time he sees a bottle and his eyes are just staring at it.
It's comical. It really is. Like, it's ridiculous.
He's believable though, as like a professor in this stage of his life when all his colleagues have gone on to do like these amazing things. Because the one thing his character keeps bringing up is like, Barton boys don't lie. Barton men don't steal. Barton men don't lie. And he is like a living contradiction of that. He's somebody that could never go beyond or succeed beyond this Barton Academy, which explains why he never left. Paul, I really firmly believe, I think it's a foregone conclusion Cillian Murphy wins the Oscar this year for Oppenheimer, and I'm not going to be mad about it. But Paul Giamatti should get a nomination for this. Yeah. This is easily his best performance, I think, since Sideways.
Yep.
And it's a Mount Rushmore performance for him, and how much this movie's success is inextricably linked to how well he plays this character.
Don't get me wrong, I will be also very happy if Cillian Murphy wins the Oscar. But if somehow Paul Giamatti's name is read off that envelope, I will literally run down the street screaming and cheering, man. I'll be so happy.
You can't see this, but like you're gonna be like the trailer screenshot of the Holdovers, and it's Giamatti's face, like pull it up like this. It's like
that's more of the reaction when Anthony Hopkins' name was read instead of Chadwick Boseman.
No, that was horror. That was like, oh, the cringe. Oh god. Yeah.
Yeah, man, he is fantastic in this movie. Like, he's always turned in good performances, great performances, and everything. But yeah, Steve, you're absolutely right. This is a Mount Rushmore. If people were to ask me, like, top 5 Paul Giamatti performances, this is probably like 1 or 2, and Sideways would probably be the other one for me. Hell, I mean, this movie's not a good movie at all, but he's amazing in it. He's one of the best Santa Clauses and Fred Claus that we've had, honestly.
He is very good at Santa.
He like as Santa Claus, I'm like, damn, Paul Giamatti could play a great Santa Claus, and I'm surprised we haven't had him back to do it again.
And then the other performance here too that you have to note, and I think there's real momentum for her to win the award is for Best Supporting Actress as Divine Joy Randolph. I think she's the soul of this movie in so many different ways. She is a wonderfully developed character, but she's a presence in herself. She's more than the mother figure. She's loaned a respectful story arc in this movie. She's not a half-baked character in herself. Her pain is real in the movie. Her presence is deeply felt, and she's only 37 years old, and she's probably most known. She's on Only Murders in This Building. That's probably the thing she's best known for in this movie, or at this point in time. But this is the kind of performance that gets you bigger roles, or it should, because she is outstanding here with everything that she's given, and she plays a very complicated character almost effortlessly well.
It's such a almost no-brainer cocktail of a character list where it's like, yeah, these two shits just going at each other for 2.5 hours, and then we have the person with their head on straight because they're in such grief. That it's like, yeah, that makes for a coming of age movie. That works remarkably well here.
She was in The Lost City with Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum, and she was probably one of my favorite parts about that movie.
She was,
yeah.
that's right.
I did not watch that movie.
She also has the B plot of that movie, which is about her going to get Sandra Bullock because she hasn't heard from Channing Tatum in like a day and thinks they're both dead. So she's like on a whole mission doing her own thing, and she plays it good in that movie too. Yeah.
I have to mention too, he's only 21 and he's got a single acting credit to his name as Dominic Sessa.
Yeah.
And he is outstanding here too. Now, the interesting thing about Sessa is that I think, his character, I think it's part of his character too. He has to evolve more and go beyond the surly teenager. And so it takes him his character a little bit longer to grow. But as a result, though, and again, this is his first acting credit, you almost feel like you're watching him grow into his comfort zone the more this movie goes on. And that's something you don't get to see a lot, because even the most, like, whenever they say in movie trailers, introducing so-and-so, it's generally their first major movie credit. Sessa has no other TV or movie credits to his name. This is his only one. He's 21 years old. And he's the nice thing that Payne does here is that he doesn't really mute his idiosyncrasies as an actor, because he doesn't look like a movie star either. He doesn't look like a conventional, teenage, like a young adult actor, but he's allowed to kind of be this awkward adolescent. And a lot of these 70s movies, like this movie has a lot in common with Hal Ashby movies, has a lot in common with, why am I blanking on his name? The guy who wrote Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice. But Paul Mazursky has a lot in common with Mazursky movies, and it allows him to be this sort of like eclectic, idiosyncratic teenager. And I'll argue Sessa has one of the best scenes in the movie, and I'm not going to ruin it because let me tell you, I didn't see it coming. There's a lot of this movie I didn't see coming, but it's the scene when he goes and visits his dad.
Yeah.
And it's a total shock. It almost takes you a couple minutes to like register what exactly is happening. But Sessa is outstanding in himself too. And he's easy to overlook here.
He's got a difficult role to balance here because he's playing a privileged kid who is a troublemaker and talks back a ton.
That's an uphill battle. That is such an uphill. That is like some Holden Caulfield shit right there, and it's like, dude, that's an uphill battle, because that is a template. That is a template for so many characters, and they're almost reviled for like the mainstream audience.
They're bastards.
They're
100%.
supposed to be like, oh, they're supposed to be understanding because they're young and everything. And most of the time when it's done, it's half-assed written or it's not directed the best way. I play most of the time when an actor is given that kind of role. I don't usually try to pin it on the actor because it's like that is like Dom said, it's a template, and there's so many characters that don't work out this way. This is how you do it right though, because there are so many times he is humanized. Like, you know, it starts off and he might seem unlikable, but yeah, as the movie goes on, you see why he is the way he is. You completely understand, and by the end, you're like, you know what, actually, this kid's just misunderstood, and I see why.
And it's not even,
and he actually has a good head on his shoulders. He just needs to get his shit straight.
Yeah, and he's when you first see him, he's shown like actually trying to do some good.
Yeah.
Right, like in the first like 20 minutes, he's like nice to the other holdovers and all that stuff. It's like he's not miserably like hated. There's something there. You can see right away that there is a spark of good in him, and hey, maybe it's more than that, which we quickly find out.
He's got a lovely scene with the one international student. He's got a lovely scene.
Yeah.
You know,
where they wake up in the middle of the night. Yeah, that was such a good scene.
And then it ends. And again, the writing of this movie is so sharp. Got to give David Hemmingson some props here for the screenplay. The writing is so sharp at the end of that scene. When, asparagus.
Moments that come and go, and it's almost it's not slice of life, but it has that feel to it, and it just keeps going. It's like life itself, and I know it seems like a basic bitch kind of criticism or like observation there, but it works so damn well here.
And I think, Joe, you'll echo this too. I told when Catherine and I saw it, we walked out of it and we went and did some other stuff that day. Kind of took a little bit of a mini road trip that day. We were talking about it. I actually played the soundtrack on our road trip and stuff because there's so many great musical bits in this movie. But I told her, I said, like, this is one of those movies where it was like, and I don't say this often, it's maybe 1.5 movies a year I can say this about. But this movie has this kind of quality, and it sounds corny if you haven't seen it. But it's one of those movies that, like, after you watch it, you feel like you kind of lived it in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's very few, like I said, years give you maybe 1.5 movies that feel like that. But this movie has that. You spend so much time. It's so hyper focused on these 3 individuals. You see so much growth and development with them over the course of 2 hours that, like, after you watch it, you almost feel like you kind of lived it in certain parts. And that's the beautiful thing about this movie too. And again, there's a lot of pain in this movie. There's a lot of like very sad moments in it for sure. But I cannot, when I've told several people about this movie in the last couple of weeks, I tell them, I'm like, it is frigging hilarious at times. Yeah. It is simultaneously one of the funniest movies of the year. Some of the dialogue, and I love movies that have like these like scholarly characters like this who speak with like a broader vocabulary, like they're like Paul Giamatti's character does too. There's so many like wildly hilarious lines in this thing, and they don't really fit as quotes like outside of the movie, but they're so perfect. There's a poetry to Hemingson's screenplay and his dialogue here, and
they're Sessa and Giamatti are 2 characters where it's like, that's me, oh shit, oh no,
yes,
no that made me, I did that a couple times in the theater. It's like, yeah, oh no god. And it makes you think about life very much so.
I love
yeah,
the final, because he talks with such elegance throughout this movie. Paul Giamatti, he talks with such elegance, and like as the movie goes longer, it starts to slip. It's the final thing he says to the dean of the school that had me laughing my ass off, because it gives you just such great context to like the whole story of his character and what the dean means to him, and just like this place in general that he works at, what it means to his character.
I can't see anyone else but Giamatti being able to pull that off, that line off.
I promise. Go on, continue.
I was gonna say, and echoing like what you said, like, oh, it feels like you're living in it. I mean, there was a semester at our college that we all went to. I stayed over the winter break because of the radio station we were a part of, and it made it easier to just get to the station, do my shift and everything. So I ended up being a holdover at our college. Now I went home because I lived in the same state for Christmas Eve and day and New Year's. But every other day, if it wasn't the holiday during that winter break, I was there. And they perfectly capture how it feels when that university just turns its back on you and is like, all right, just survive. Do your best.
That's
I promise
funny.
I'll parlay this into closing thoughts here. But Joe, I know you mentioned it earlier. You've seen it. It's another, I feel like it's one of Alexander Payne's most underrated movies. It's called Nebraska. Dom, did you see it?
No, I've seen shockingly little of this director, and I think about Schmidt. I saw that with my dad, which may be his holdovers, but yeah, it's yeah, not much
Payne
of
is
him.
one of
No.
Payne is one of these directors where I talk to all these dudes who are all about Scorsese, Nolan, all these directors, and I bring up Alexander Payne. They're like, I haven't seen anything about it, and I'm like, man, you guys talk about like, you're all for cinema and everything. You don't fucking give two shits about these directors.
I've given 4 Alexander Payne movies 4 stars. And the Nebraska, I want to briefly mention Nebraska, and I'll wrap it around to closing thoughts here. I promise this is germane. Dom, if you don't know, Nebraska, and I just love telling people the plot of Nebraska for some weird reason. Payne is from Nebraska, too, for what it's worth. And the movie is essentially about, it's got Bruce Dern and Will Forte. And Will Forte is like this quietly depressed man, and he lives with it, and he's close with his parents, his elderly parents. Well, his dad is starting to suffer, I believe it's dementia.
Yeah.
And he's starting to suffer dementia, Bruce Dern. And the dad gets a letter in the mail, and it's a piece of scam mail, and it says that he's won $1 million. And the son tries to explain to him that, like, he reads the letter and he says, Dad, you have to sign up for a magazine subscription, which therein qualifies you for a raffle and to potentially win this $1 million. It's bullshit. And the letter, though, says to go to the lottery or to go to the offices in Lincoln, Nebraska. And the dad is adamant about going to Nebraska to collect his $1 million. So the whole movie is this frigging road trip. Taking him from, like, I think it's like California or someplace super far away to drive all the way across the country. They can't fly for some reason because it's a movie. They can't fly for some reason, but they drive all the way across country, and you know what's going to happen when they get there. But the dad is like, they would never send this if it wasn't true. And it's one of those movies where it seems like a cursed screenplay, where if you give somebody that idea, it's like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? But Payne said a long time ago when he was accepting some award, he said, there's a problem with, I think it was accepting an award for Sideways, actually. He said, there's something of a problem where making small human and humorous movies is considered some sort of a big achievement. He's like, in my opinion, it should be the norm. And he's like, I really didn't recognize this until Sideways came out and everybody was like bestowing all sorts of praise on it. And I'm like, and Payne was like, I feel like I could have done so many things better, because it was based off a book. He's like, I feel like I could have done so many things better with this movie, but it's like, we don't get a lot of these movies. And it's looked at as like this revelation. And The Holdovers feels very much like if it would have come out in the 70s, it would have been a really great movie, but it would have been in a landscape when you had like Hal Ashby and Paul Mazursky and Woody Allen and a lot of people who were making these types of movies that were very grounded, human interest, not to mention focus on a demographic that does not get a lot of humanization in American movies, the forgotten middle-aged demographic. But this was an easy call for me very early into the movie. I absolutely adored this thing. The Holdovers is an easy 4 stars for me, to say the very least. And I'll be talking about it again in a month when we give our favorite movies of the year. We'll go Joe, then Dom. Final thoughts.
I'm just gonna jump right into it. It's also 4 stars for me, and it will be mentioned again a month later from now when we do our best of list. It's no doubt in my mind. It's like the 2 other films I mentioned earlier in this review. When I got done seeing both those movies, I came out and it made me go like, this is why I love going to see movies. This is why I love watching movies. This is why at one point in my life I wanted to create movies. And The Holdovers is another example of that. It's just right up my alley when it comes to stuff like this. And it has a more personal feel to it for me as well. If you ever developed any sort of like friendship with a teacher, professor, whatever it may be throughout like your school year, it definitely hits that as well. There is that like kind of like that mutual understanding of like teacher to students, of like, understanding each other and kind of being almost like a mentor figure there outside of being a teacher for just like whatever subject they're teaching. It does that so well. I absolutely adore this film. I can't wait to see what Payne does next. I'm glad to see not only did he come back from downsizing with a big hit, but like one of his best movies he's made, and then like ever for me. Yeah, 4 out of 4 stars for me.
So 3.5 stars is what I was going to give this movie, and I promise it's not you gentlemen, persuading me or whatever. It really
I
isn't.
was gonna say, give it what you want, man. It's totally fine.
No, 100%. But and it's like I keep thinking about. I would have to watch it again. I'd be like, it is some of the abruptness of these scenes, not hard abruptness, with hard cuts or anything, but just the fleetingness of them and almost kind of the ending as well. Am I confusing that seeming abruptness with like efficiency, even though it's 2+ hours? So it's like, this easily could be a very plotting 3-hour movie. And additionally, I kind of came to the conclusion live on air, if you rewind the tape, where it's like, yeah, man, I think that's just life. I think that's how it is. Scenes just come and go, moments just come and go. And it is hard to, or not hard. It's not hard to find a movie like this, but it is rare on the yearly schedule. And Steve, what you were talking about earlier, where it's like, yeah, movies like this, where do they come from? And it's like, it just comes out of certain writers and certain directors. So honestly, for that, it pushes it over the edge for 4 out of 4 stars. I really am happy this movie was made and we get something like this. And I do have a fear that people are going to be like, oh yeah, it's that 70s aesthetic, it's that film grain and that crackle in the audience. Like, no, get it together. It's the writing, it's the character work, it's the honesty in these characters. It's like, yeah, you'd think it wouldn't work well today. It's like, yeah, a couple of white guys are just being sarcastic assholes to each other, and then you have the token help on the side, just for some diversity. No, it's not that at all. It really, really isn't. Look past the aesthetics here and look at what the story is, and it's something that touches us three young men in their late 20s very, very well.
Excellent discussion, guys. I texted you guys immediately after seeing this thing. I said I would love to discuss this on the show. I don't know how long it's going to be in theaters. Thankfully, it's lingered. It's still in a lot of theaters nationwide. Even though it is on video on demand at the moment, you can rent it. And again, I still don't understand why studios, this is a whole other thing, but I don't understand why studios kamikaze their own movies like this, where normally how it used to be even just a couple of years ago, if a movie didn't do super hot its opening weekend, they still kept it in theaters for the risk of maybe the holdover box office week to week, but this thing got dumped on video on demand less than a month after it came to theaters. I don't know why studios do that. And I think, granted, it's a kid's movie, but I think Elemental proved the flaw in that model too.
Yeah.
With how it legged it. And that's why I said too, I didn't like the movie. I forgot the movie pretty much existed very soon after seeing it. But I said the same thing, when I was talking to some friends about Wish. I said, Disney is going to be tempted to put this thing on Disney Plus, but the holidays are coming up. Just see what it does.
Yeah.
Just see what it does. I wish they would have done that for the holdovers too. Because again, it might not seem like a big deal because they're going to get the revenue anyway, but at the same time, though, that's what leads to piracy. That's what compounds piracy, because now there's a crystal clear 1080p version of this movie available online to rent, and that's what leads it to the pirate sites. Be that as it may, we got to move on. Sleepless OT here, but we have to talk about this beautiful background right there. Love that promo image of Grand Theft Auto 6. It is finally not only confirmed, there's video evidence, it exists. It was also responsible for one of the biggest leaks in the history of the video game industry just about a year ago, I believe. That was a mess. I tried to avoid a lot of that. I didn't watch much of it.
I didn't watch any of it. I was I'm going to play it eventually, hopefully one day.
That's exactly right. I didn't bother. I said, there's really nothing I want to see with this that's not official yet. And thankfully now we have a 1.5-minute trailer that we can rewatch over and over again. As I said, I've watched this trailer about 7 or 8 times. I'm just going to I know I've talked about it on the show before. I just want to give a brief statement about what the Grand Theft Auto series means for me. I used to be a pretty big gamer. I'm not anymore. I haven't been in a long time. If I do play video games though nowadays, I go back to the Grand Theft Auto series. I've played GTA 5 this year. I've played San Andreas this year. Those are 2 of the only games I've played for for the longest time. The GTA series has always been extremely special to me. Vice City was the first M-rated game I ever played, way too young. And I vividly remember wearing out one San Andreas PS2 disc and having to buy the game over again. I've been obsessed with these games for as long as I can remember. GTA 4 have a lot of great memories online with friends and beating that game too. GTA 5 I didn't play as much. I did play a lot. I didn't play as much as GTA 4 because I got older. It was right butting up against college when that game came out too. I think I was a senior in high school. And now
you have a life in the real open world as opposed to the video game one.
But it's kind of an understatement, and it's almost corny to say, and I show my youth, but a lot of my love for even music was shaped by Grand Theft Auto, specifically San Andreas.
Yeah.
A lot of my tastes in music, and even still to this day, as somebody who works in radio, when I hear songs like A Horse with No Name or Two Tickets to Paradise, my mind immediately goes to San Andreas and remembering hearing those songs on KDST and other fiction. Half of my love for radio came from Grand Theft Auto and the faux commercials and everything. It was
Laszlo, the radio host, all those people, the fake radio hosts were so much fun to just listen to.
Yeah, you had so many great personalities on on those stations and stuff. K Rose, Mary Beth Mabel, I always remember too. And even I'm not gonna lie, I'm one of my duties at the radio station. I do create the liners that play in between the songs. I still think back to some of the great liners of San Andreas. I think those were some of the best. Like the country station K Rose. It was like, barefoot and pregnant again? It's time for K Rose. And then KDST, one of the greatest liners in the history of radio, because it was called The Dust, the classic rock station. None of that rap crap. Record scratch. Word. I got a word for you, homie. Dust.
It's so bitingly satirical. This is a British property. Don't forget that. This is a British property, and people sleep on it because it's so American, GTA. But the whole series, since its inception in like the 80s, 90s, I forget. GTA goes way back. Like, this whole series is just one big like
satire on America.
Satire, 100%. Specifically a British one, and it makes so much sense when you come to terms with that. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's not until like 4 and 5 where it's like they still are a satire, but they very much now have become like crime, like action movies. Like, it's like 4 is more of a drama, and then I would say like 5 has more of an action feel to it.
Yes,
but the original, I shouldn't say the original 3, but the PS2 trilogy, 3, Vice City, and San Andreas are like over the top, like not even over the top, but just satire, fun ass games to play.
Yeah, if 4 was like a drama about like an immigrant.
Yeah.
The 5th one was like a heist. Was a total like heist movie.
It was like watching what's his name? The director of Heat, Michael Mann.
Michael Mann. Yeah.
It was like watching a Michael Mann movie on like cocaine. Like
the last thing I'll always remember is and it plays well into what Dom's point is. Granted, it comes from 4. I remember one of the interesting inclusions in GTA 4 was you could watch the television in Nico's apartment.
Yeah.
That was almost too much.
Space Rangers, man.
Yes, I was just gonna say Republican Space Rangers.
Oh boy.
I watched every episode of that show in the game, and it's absolutely hilarious. I still love when they come in contact with the aliens, and the aliens like, well, what do you like, sir? I like museums and reading ancient history and poetry. And then it cuts to this. I like TV and breakfast buffet, mega churches and rodeo.
It's almost too much. It's like let's be honest. Some of the satire is like, okay, dial it back a little bit, but for some reason, it's so childish at times. It's so This is the un-British part of it, where it's like it's so effing childish at times.
The
Republican
PS2
Space Rangers.
The PS2 games were very childish with its satire, like the Cluck and Bell order menu from Big Smoke. How it just kept going on and on.
You can get some like Faulty Towers moments in GTA, and then at the same time like Shameless, like just straight up. Although you could argue like 80% of this whole series is just Shameless. And it's so crazy. Like I'm like you, Steve, where it's like GTA 5, while a major cultural touchstone, didn't really hit as much for me personally because I had not grown out of it, but I just didn't have the time anymore to dedicate. And there's something to be said about open world games as you get older, as you're no longer a kid. It hits way less. It doesn't quite vibe with you. But for me, it was GTA 4. The trailer and the up and coming, build up to GTA 4 was that run up for me personally. I played, GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas a shit ton, and those were rentals, but they were already out. 4 was my game, and I still contend that is my.
I think it's all
favorite.
Anybody our age group. 4 was the real one you bought from the start.
You didn't go back to.
Mm-hmm. You didn't rent it from Blockbuster. You didn't borrow it from a friend. You didn't take it from your older brother or something.
That was your journey.
4 was the one that you bought,
and it was I'll contend it's the last GTA 4 to be a true single player experience. Obviously, you can play 5 and I hope 6 completely offline. Yeah. But it's not, the whole game is not built around that. 4 did have multiplayer sessions, but and all that. You could do that stuff, but it is such an insular story.
It was pre-DLC era. It was. I mean, it did have DLC.
It did have DLC.
But even in that,
but not like the multiplayer plot lines. Not multiplayer
plot lines. That's the key, because it did have spin-off sequels like what was it,
Lost
and
and
the Damned and Ballad of Gay Tony.
Ballad of Gay Tony was
I love Ballad of Gay Tony.
Ballad of Gay Tony was excellent.
It was that shit was getting crazy. That was like some San Andreas Vice City shit. Where
Lost in the Dam was decent. It was pretty good. It was very Sons of Anarchy.
Yes.
The biker gang, but Ballad of Gay Tony was outstanding. I felt like at the time that could have been its own game.
Yeah.
That was an outstanding plot. That was outstanding gameplay. Now we finally have GTA 6, and just a masterful trailer all around. Gives you all the tease that you want. It's scored to a Tom Petty song as well. Beautiful Tom Petty ballad that they use in it. Name of it slips my mind for the second.
Love is a Long Road.
Love is a Long Road. And it adopts, first off, the setting is based on Florida. It hasn't been said. I think it's pronounced Leonida. I'm not 100%. That is the setting of this, though. Obviously based on Florida, though. It includes Vice City, which has obviously always been a kind of a fictitious recreation of Miami.
Yeah.
And it follows, whereas GTA 5, you switch between 3 characters. It was Michael, Franklin, and Trevor. I think this one, you're probably going to switch between Lucia, the female protagonist, and then it was part of the leaks. It hasn't been confirmed, but it's rumored that her male partner, who's unnamed at this time, is Jason.
Yeah.
It seems like you're going to switch between those 2 characters. That's kind of how it plays. It looks very Bonnie and Clyde-esque. The trailer is...
Which, about time we got that with Grand Theft Auto, honestly.
It's true. With this, though, and you know what? It's not like this is a first-time thing. We'll have to come back, take one more Zoom-sponsored intermission here in a couple minutes, and then
should we just do it now and just...
You want to do it now? Let's do it now.
GTA got us to do a 3-parter. Holy shit.
Let me finish the one thought I will say, though, before we come back. Then I'll let you guys speak finally. But the thing, though, with this, and it felt this way with GTA 5, if you remember the trailer drop. This game is going to be on PS5 and Xbox Series X/S. You look at the crowded streets. You look at the crowded beaches, the volume of NPCs. This is going to test the limits of the next generation of consoles, which is the same thing GTA 5 did.
Red Dead Redemption 2.
Red Dead Redemption. I remember seeing the map size of GTA 5 and just being in complete shock. And I would not be surprised if GTA 6 has double the map size. You look at that crowded street even too.
Look at that bed. Holy shit. Look at that bed.
It's crowded though, man. You can see it. There's
you go back to Liberty City, GTA 4 Liberty City, and you go to Times Square, Star Junction, but you go back to Times Square, that thing is empty. That thing is nothing like the real Times Square, obviously because of the limitations at the time.
Dude, you squint and you can tell. If you gave this to somebody, if I would take off my glasses and you told me, oh yeah, no, I went to Miami last week, here you go, and the GTA 6 logo wasn't there, I'd be like, dude, holy shit, look at those nice cars.
I mean, look at this too. There's lights in the apartments.
Yeah.
And this is what it looks like now. It's not finished. You know what I mean? It's not even finished. And who knows what the graphical capabilities are going to be when they update the Xbox console, even too, and they release the updates and stuff.
I mean, like, even coming off of Red Dead, I know we're about to take the break and everything, but even coming off of Red Dead 2, which is right now, that's my favorite Rockstar game. Like, it used to be GTA 4, but Red Dead 2 took that like by a landslide for me. The detail in that game, like, I remember seeing the trailers, like, man, is it really gonna look that good? Like on the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And I played, I'm like, this is one of the best looking games on this console. So like, I look at this and it's like, yeah, I believe it. It's gonna be looking that good. I can't wait to like get my hands on it.
We'll take another Zoom-sponsored intermission. I will let these gentlemen give their thoughts on the GTA 6 trailer. I do promise. We'll be back here in about 60 to 90 seconds. Don't go anywhere. Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. We are back, Sleepless with Steve, double OT tonight, talking GTA 6. The trailer
This is our
has
trilogy.
dropped. Yes, it is. I just noticed, too, that the GTA 6 trailer broke the record for YouTube views, 100 million hits in a day. Again, this is a cultural touchstone moment for the culture, capital C culture.
The gaming landscape in the past, you could argue decade, but at least the last like 5-6 years has been so bleak and so disappointing. Joe can speak more to this, but something about Rockstar, for all of their legitimate flaws, shark cards, but for all of the flaws, they make the blockbuster of games. They're 12-year blockbusters. But yes,
I was gonna say there is. I mean, specifically with this franchise, there's people who only buy Madden games. There's people who only buy Call of Duty games. There is also a group of people that will only buy Grand Theft Auto games. That is, and Steve is one of them.
And everyone.
I'm at that phase of my life, and it's worth mentioning too. And then I'll pass it to you, Joe. Your reaction to the GTA 6 trailer. It's worth noting too, and you almost have to say it just to try to wrap your brain around it. GTA 5 is also one of the most successful entertainment properties in the world. And when you say entertainment properties, you are talking about like full-on businesses like casinos and ventures and everything. Grand Theft Auto 5 has made $8 billion with a B in revenue dollars.
Grand Theft Auto has their own casinos, and they're called shark cards. No, no, not necessarily. I mean, I heard a statistic that it's like, Grand Theft Auto 3 came out in 2001, famously very close to 9/11, and 12 years between Grand Theft Auto 3 and Grand Theft Auto 5. Also, it has been 12 years since Grand Theft Auto 5 came out once this release. Assuming no delays, it really comes out in 2024 or 5, I should say, 2025. It will be another 12 years. So this is becoming the epic that really anchors a lot of people's lives. 13 years or 12, 13 years.
Some of us went from childhood to adulthood between games.
It's true. It's true. Now I could buy GTA 5. I was 17 at the time, but it even feels like now I'm a full functioning adult and I can finally enjoy another GTA 6 game, like as an adult without like the kid sensibilities. Joe, what was your reaction? What was your reaction to the GTA 6 trailer?
Dom, are you done? I mean, like if you want to go on a little bit longer, I'll let you go on and then I can jump in.
I'll just say real quick that I was browsing my phone and I found out the leaks were happening in the waiting room to my therapist. So it was like, man, I'm going to be so unfocused this session, bro. I did not discuss it. I did not bring it up in therapy, but regardless, yeah, dude, I just reaction to it. I'm like, shit, dude, this is it was surreal
happening
because I really can mark moments in my life where I watched the debut trailer to a Grand Theft Auto game, 4, 5, and 6. I'm like, yeah, literally grade school, college, full life, like full adulthood here, like today or like, this past week. It's like, it really is a surreal moment. Steve, was it you who said like, yeah, the first time I watched it, it was surreal. I don't even remember watching it.
No, I
wasn't processing the images.
Couldn't have paid too much close attention to it. Yeah, I had
that same almost out of body experience, and I think everyone else was having it. This really is a cultural touchstone, Joe.
Dude, I had a village board meeting Monday night. I had to go present in front of the village board.
Oh no.
So to kill time, I went to our esports cafe in Lisle. I shouldn't say that. Oh my God. I went to the esports cafe where I work. And I was playing some games with my friends, talking to them on Discord because I got out at 4. The meeting doesn't start till 7. I was like, I got to kill some time. I want to be in my office the entire time waiting for this meeting to start. So I played about an hour and a half of games. Right before I left, we were about to search for another match of the game we were playing. And I went, guys, the GTA 6 trailer is out. And we all quit the match.
In a gaming cafe.
In a gaming cafe.
Holy
and I pulled
shit.
it up. And the guy next to me went, is that GTA 6? And I'm like, yeah. And he quit his game and logged onto the computer. But all of a sudden,
it dropped a day early.
Yeah. It was supposed to come out Tuesday. For those who didn't know, this trailer was supposed to come out yesterday. And somebody released
some Bitcoin
it, and Rockstar
scammer. Yeah.
And then Rockstar was like, all right, I mean, we might as well put it out there ourselves at this point. So I was in a cafe watching it, and dude, man, no one makes a good ass game trailer like Rockstar does. Like, I was brought into the world of Vice City and Grand Theft Auto for 2 minutes and 23 seconds, man. The world atmosphere of this game is just oozing throughout that trailer. I can't wait to walk around and see the crowds. I can't wait to walk around and see the stupid activities I can do, like go play darts, go bowling, go all this stuff. This franchise always gets a bad rep as the game you get a hooker, murder her, and kill thousands of people and blow up cars. And yeah, I'm going to do that. But I'm going to do all this other stuff too that like these games don't get enough credit for. It's all the other crazy shit. But even more recently, the stories in these games kick ass. Like, yeah, no, the story in 3 is really non-existent. It's like you go and do missions.
There was some mafia shit, some homage to like that era
and everything. Yeah. Vice City is when they actually started like, hey, let's actually like make a story here and have a voice actor. And they had the great late Ray Liotta playing Tommy Vercetti, and he is an innocent man. And they had him voice the actor, and it's like it's reminiscent of Scarface. It's set in the 80s. It's in Miami, the same setting this game's going to be mostly set in. And then San Andreas was a big gangster tale, like Boys in the Hood and everything.
Can I say, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt your train of thought. I'm so sorry to steal away from you, but
no, go ahead.
San Andreas hits also really home for me. I still say them in my head, because I would never say this out loud, but like I still say in my head, like fitting to hit the block. What am I going to do today? Fitting to hit the block. See what's happening. That's what I say to myself. And also, there's something magical about that game, because the first time you play San Andreas, you're playing this character who's coming home, right?
Yeah.
To their old neighborhood, their old town, and like their old life. And it's like, well, I don't really know what's going on here because I'm a first time player. as the years go by and you pop that disc in again, you bring up that game on Steam,
and
eventually,
it feels like you're going home again.
I am coming home. What the? It's timeless. It's timeless.
Me and my best friend, we still make the joke, like when we come home and stuff, like he still lives, back home and whatever. But when I come home, we always make the joke. One of us winds up texting it to each other when I'm like finally back in town. We always wind up texting Grove Street home.
At least that was before I fucked everything
up. But God, we say that Grove Street home.
So many memorable quotes from these games. It wasn't until 4 as a kid, like I used to play them. Yeah, I wouldn't care about doing the missions and everything and whatnot. I just wanted to go free roam and do crazy shit. I would play a couple missions, get about halfway through most of these games, unlock the second island, and be like, that's it, I'm done. I just want I'm gonna go blow stuff up now. 4 was the game that made me go, oh shit, I actually really enjoy this story, and I want to see it to the end. I mean, shit. There's a mission. There's a mission in 4. It's a 15-minute cutscene of them just sitting in a house deciding what they're gonna do to like the rival mob family, the rival Irish mob family. And it's like, I was invested. I'm fucking 13 years old on the edge of my seat. Like, how is Nico gonna get out of this one? and then the DLCs came out after. 5, I love. I know you guys said you didn't get to play a lot of it. 4 is my favorite as of now of the franchise, like GTA franchise. Like I said, Red Dead 2 is my favorite. Rockstar in general, a lot of great games. Bully, one of my other favorite games. Love that game.
Shout out LA Noire. Gets no love.
LA Noire, great game. Rockstar table tennis, amazing game. So if you love ping pong,
what a random ass aside for this for that studio.
I love this franchise so much that I knew how bad this collection was. And I asked for it as a gift, and someone actually got it for me. And I'm planning to play through all 3 of them. And I got it. I wanted it on Switch specifically just because I can play these games on the go. Because I used to play them on the iPhone when they had the iPhone ports, and it sucked. So I was like, I might as well get it where I can at least play it on some kind of controller. Yeah, man. God, dude, I can't wait for this game, man. Like, I love what Rockstar has done. Like, especially me, like, growing up with their games, actually buying them on release. From Grand Theft Auto 4 to 5 to Red Dead 2 to Bully. I've enjoyed what they've done. Their craftsmanship really shows. And yes, I know like the online factor is going to be definitely a part of this game, but if it's anything like Red Dead 2 was, where there was Red Dead 2 and there was Red Dead Online, Red Dead 2, I put down that controller at the end of that game. I said, I seen a lot of movies in 2018 because I had Movie Pass. I saw like 80 something movies. But Red Dead 2 was my favorite story I witnessed, read, whatever you want to say, all year. And it's because I got to live in that world. And they do such a good job at making you feel like you are in that world through somebody else's shoes. There was like 3 hours of that game one night. I just hanged out with the gang you're a part of in Red Dead 2 and just sat by the campfire and talked to each and every one of them and got to know them, and then went out and like robbed a place and then came back to the campfire and like bonded. It's just like, fuck, man, like Rockstar really knows how to do it. And I did the same with 5. I used to like call up Trevor as like Michael and reconnect with them and have them hang out one-on-one like you used to do with Nico and his cousin, or even like, other characters in that game like Brucey and whatnot.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I just can't wait, especially if this is gonna be a Bonnie and Clyde story-esque type story. Then I absolutely can't wait to watch these 2 characters just interact and play off one another and see where the story goes. And if it's anything like like what Rockstar's been doing lately, where they're not afraid to kill off a character, dude, I'm gonna be on the edge of my seat throughout this game.
It's gonna be tragic. It's going to be tragic.
Yeah.
And my bad habit with the GTA games, like I played 4 for about a year before I even beat it. Yeah. Like my bad habit with the GTA games, I don't like to admit it, but I screw around so much. I kind of ditch the story maybe after the first mission and then go mess around and get familiarized with the area and what I can and can't do, what I can interact with, because that's part of the fun of a sandbox game.
I usually, once I unlock the next island is when I'm like, okay, I played enough of the story. Let me go walk around and feel the world out. And then I'll go back to the story, like probably like a couple like weekends later.
And the thing is, and I feel like, you know, the hardcore GTA enthusiast, you know, and again, you get to a conversation like with us about GTA, you know, we can talk a lot about it. The thing about these games, though, like we talk about a lot of the fun stuff and everything that you can do in these games and all the asides, and we talk about the moments, you know, in the storyline that really captivate us and move us. But man, I will say the one thing about these GTA games, and I know it's not just because I'm not a gamer really anymore, but man, even when I was, and I beat like San Andreas and GTA 4 consecutively one time, like, holy fuck, some of these missions are hard. Like, it really tests your gaming sensibilities, these missions.
Infamously,
I will always,
yeah.
I will always remember like it's still to date the most frustrating. Broke a fucking controller over it. I still remember the single hardest mission, the fucking Zero's air raid missions in San Andreas with those damn RC planes that Rockstar later admitted there was a goddamn flaw in the game that made it harder to hit the target than they wanted to. That fucking thing took me probably a dozen times on a controller before I beat it.
Everyone learned who David Cross was and immediately hated him.
Oh God, yeah, and like, oh, I never wanted to
unfairly
watch
unfairly
show
so
again.
He should sue for like slander or something. I don't know.
Screaming ass when you're trying to hit the target the size of a Sprite. Like,
I recently beat
Sprunk.
GTA 3 for the first time. It wasn't the first time I played it. It was just the first time I actually played it through to the end. Holy shit, the cops in that game are hard. They just show out of nowhere, man. Like, the final mission of this game is like, you have to go to this one place, fight through waves of cops, then drive to the dam, fight your way up the New York, like, Hoover Dam. I don't know what the fuck dam they're trying to reminisce here. Like, it's just, I know it's not the Hoover Dam. That was just in my head for some reason. I was like, I'm playing it on Switch. I'm like, man, I'm about to break my fucking Switch over this damn game.
And the underrated part of like some of the early games, and maybe I'm misremembering, there wasn't such a thing in like GTA 4 or GTA 5, but like back when consoles had more serious limitations, there weren't that many checkpoints in these missions either. So like if you've died or got arrested, you had to go back to the very beginning, and that included driving to where you needed to go.
GTA 4 was the first game that allowed you to at least restart the mission after a failure. Then 5 finally introduced checkpoints into the game,
like
so it wasn't a total loss.
I mean, San Andreas, you had to go back, like you ended up at the police station, then you had to get a car again and go back to where you were. And then GTA 5, I remember it was, and they basically had to do this, or if not, create a fucking suicide button, because the game, there was parts of that game that were so remote in like the wilderness and stuff, or like the desert, that like they made it so your car wouldn't catch fire if it rolled over. You could flip you could play with the joysticks and reel, and like it's easily the
That's
most
still weird to me
part.
as someone who
It
grew
is
up
weird
from
to me.
grew up with the other games before 5. It's like, that feels weird.
But like you had to do that.
You kids have it so easy. Back in my day, you just had to ditch the car because it was on fire. It would light on fire.
Light on fire, and 90% of the time you get killed because of it.
Yeah, or like it takes you so long to crawl out of it.
And
you know
lose
what
like
I mean?
90% of your health. You're at 5 health, and then one.
But that was like, I remember that early on being one of my favorite things that they did in GTA 5 was because there was just like, if you went all the way out to like Mount Chiliad or something like that, or you went all the way out to like the middle of nowhere, you had no method of transportation. So unless the only other solution was two other solutions were honestly like making the player run back to civilization, which could have taken a half an hour given how big that game was, or B, create a suicide code.
Yeah,
you know, so like,
well, now I mean, you can pull out the phone and call a taxi at the very fucking least.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Kids got it so easy. Goddamn.
You know, you just mentioned that. We'll wrap this up, but you know what? It's still another thing. Because me and my buddy, we bonded so much over GTA. We always bring up the callbacks. I remember in GTA 4, that was the first game where you had like a cell phone that you could play with.
Yeah,
you know, you had a cell phone in GTA San Andreas, but it was only when you were getting a call. You had no control over it.
Yeah,
but in
L1 to answer.
In GTA 4, you had the phone that you could pull up. I still remember the ringtones you could make.
Yeah,
like you could.
Oh my God.
And if you remember, they had commercials on the radio for like the commercials that you could have for the ringtone. And I always remember, oh, bitch, falling, breaking a hip.
The internet was introduced in GTA.
Yes.
Not like what we're using now, but like in the world of GTA, when they brought that, and you can go to a web cafe and everything. God, that was so cool.
It changes with the times. It's a portrait of America.
One thing about this trailer, and thank you for just saying that, Dom. when they showed like the Instagram lives or the TikTok live feeds, I was like, oh shit, yeah, it's been so long. They're gonna have a whole new craft of just social media to play with.
There's gonna be a mission where it's like where Lucia is gonna be yelling at like Jason and being like, "You dumb son of a bitch, you're on TikTok," you know, and it's gonna replay how you did the mission or something like that. You already know that's gonna be incorporated, but what a great show today! What a great show today! Holdovers. Got to remember the legacy of Norman Lear, Grand Theft Auto 6. Excellent show tonight, guys. Joe, I'm so glad you got to do a surprise appearance and show up today. So that was really cool to see you too. Next week is Napoleon. Next week is the Joaquin Phoenix movie Napoleon, a little belated, but there's not a ton coming out. And then I think the week after then, I got to check the schedule again. But I know then the week after TBD, then it's Christmas, then it's Wonka. Wonka's our last review of the year.
Okay.
So that's how that's set up then for the immediate future. Want to thank you again, Joe, for showing up. Dom, thank you again for running the show so diligently and everything like that. It's been a loaded show. It's past 8 o'clock. It's past our bedtimes. We got to get out of here. Again, appreciate you making the time. So highlights will be posted on this YouTube channel for Joe Viso. Glad to have him. Dominic Guanzon. Very glad to have him as well. And yours truly, this has been